All right, parents, here we go again. It's the Ask Dr. Tony episode. This is the Experience Miracles podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Tony Ebel, an expert in pediatrics, neurodevelopmental disorders, and drug-free, nervous system-focused healthcare. On this weekly episode, I'll be addressing the top questions on every parent's mind. If there's one thing we love and welcome, it's parents who never stop learning, asking the hard questions, and advocating for your kiddos like none other. So get ready for some real talk, real-life clinical and parenting experience, and real easy to understand answers that will help your family take action and get to that next level of health and healing. You ask, I answer. Let's dive into today's episode. Okay, parents, let's get into it. Are you seeing it? I'm pretty sure you are, because a lot of you awesomely are tagging us on this recent steady stream of Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and probably on TikTok too, but thankfully I'm not there. These medical doctors usually making sure they're wearing their scrubs, their hats, their white coats, having their stethoscopes hanging around their shoulders. Recently, there's been this massive run of these just really, I gotta say it, just hateful, bashing, reactionary posts from medical doctors who are doing everything they can to get on social media and just try and throw down with chiropractors, natural health, supplements, any kind of non-pharmacological, root cause, natural nervous system healing that actually gets kids and families better. They just don't seem to be big fans of it. Now, with this Q&A reaction episode, if you will, here from the Experience Miracles podcast, I want to let you know that I'm going to do my very best to not follow in their shoes and just go on a rant that has no basis, no foundation, and no substance to it. You guys have awesomely been tagging us in a ton of those, and I have not yet responded to pretty much any of them or had our team do that, because the truth is they're just so surface level. They're so off track. They're what I've studied. I love writing. I love content. I loved neuroscience most in school, but oh my gosh, I'm revealing another element of my nerdiness to you here on the podcast. I actually really love English too. Like if there was ever an exam where we could write an essay paper where we had to do tons of research and put it all together, well, that's probably why I have a podcast now, because I love talking, I love writing, and so I'm somewhat familiar with terms that are very accurate to what these medical doctors are doing on Instagram. They're almost always using these straw man arguments where, like, I'll give you a perfect example to kick this off. And then I just want to let you know that you're going to get my full response here. What do I think about it? Which is what a lot of you guys are DMing us or tagging us. Hey, what are your thoughts on this? That's what this whole episode is. And I'm going to stay straight line and I'm going to stay focused. I'm not going to go too crazy as much as my heart and kind of my inner dad mode. And I'm not only protective of my kids, I'm really protective of our patients and our people we take care of. I'm not always so patient. And our principles and this movement that God has called us to do. So let me start off with an example. The one we were tagged in this morning that reminded me, you know what, I got to get this episode out for you guys, is this medical doctor, I believe the Peds doc or something like that, or Peds Doc Talk, got on and grabbed a hold of one of our top PX docs. Shout out to Dr. Kevin Powell and his team in Franklin, Tennessee. And they have this really cool reel that went up actually many months ago, and it's got over 21 million views because parents need help with ADHD. That's what this reel is about. And they are looking for root cause actual neuroscientific answers as to why their children are struggling with these behavior, these focus, these behavioral dysregulation issues. And then parents have always been looking for testing, so some sort of examination that will give them an idea. What is the actual neuroscience behind these struggles versus the regular ADHD approaches? There is no test. Clinical psychologists and psychiatrists just have parents fill out a survey. It's just literally, basically you could replace that with AI. And a lot of times it is online, where you take a survey. Usually those surveys are on websites that sell, or at least connect you to the sellers, medical doctors, of medications for ADHD. And if the medications are going to say, hey, ADHD is a chemical imbalance. That's the quote unquote scientific theory. I've done an episode about that. It's not a very good scientific theory, not even close, to call it a chemical imbalance. Well, they don't even test for that. before they put kids on medications. So again, we're already coming with this reel as an example into this straw man argument. But I want to give you an even more detailed as to how off track these are. I could give you everyone I've ever been tagged in. I could literally go into the details like I am with this one and show you, well, the point they're now putting their phone in front of their face and arguing against isn't even something we said. It's not even in the stratosphere. And so in this reaction reel, this medical doctor says, hey, they're talking about diagnosing ADHD using these scans. She must not have even read a single bit of the caption of the copy, because the entire purpose of the caption, the copy, and the educational reel was to say, we do not diagnose or treat or even come within the stratosphere of saying we cure ADHD. We find the root cause dysfunction, nervous system dysregulation, disruption and delays within neurodevelopment that are literally from the inside out triggering the abnormal neurophysiological expressions that add up to symptoms. AKA, in parents today, we're doing what you want us to do, which is actually take the time to answer the questions that the conventional medical and pharmaceutical system won't. That we are taking the time to look into the modernization of science and what we know today to be true, not 1980, not 2000, but what is the neuroscience of neuroplasticity and neurodevelopment and neurological function today. And then we're bringing that information to you. And so on my response episode here today, that's going to be one of the main points. If you're not caught up to speed on the actual science behind these conditions today, well, then when you go to react to someone who is, you're not going to have a very scientifically accurate or even common sense updated reaction to that if you're simply not updated. So I'm already into one of my talking points. I just want to set the tone with this one that I'm going to be very grounded, very heartfelt, and very straightforward with my response on this. This is not our podcast, not our platform on Instagram. Sometimes I know it feels like we're walking the line, but we have to really be able to wake people up and say, hey, there's more to what's going on than you're being told in those conventional doctors' offices. But even within that, we're not trying to create this us versus them conversation. I pray a lot about that. I strategize a lot about that. I don't ever want our platform or our podcast to come across and say, hey, things that are drug-free, natural health, and neurologically focused like chiropractic are good because medicine is bad. I don't think that's a strong enough position and argument to really transform your family's health. It's our responsibility to do both, to say, hey, here's the holes in that scientific theory. Here's the outdatedness in the chemical imbalance theory. Here's why you're looking for more information that you're not getting there. So we can absolutely share the truth about what's missing on the conventional side of care. You know, the one that, I'll talk about this in a second, saves lives like none other in emergency and crisis care, but also the one that struggles mightily with helping kids and families with chronic health, neurodevelopmental conditions like autism, like ADHD. That's just the truth. All those things can be true at the same time. But our job is only really getting done if we continue the conversation where we can explain to you, here's how what we do works. Here's the neuroscience behind neurologically focused chiropractic and natural drug-free interventions. Here's the actual root cause behind these things. And here's how you can take care strategies that tap into your child's brain and nervous system and get it healing naturally, drug-free, safely on its own, instead of just chasing symptoms, dismissing it, or any other number of options that probably, very likely, do not align with your family. So this isn't a episode where I'm going to hope all of you go, yeah, you guys go and they're bad. I hope that you see at the end of this, to have healthy kids and a healthy country, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take medical doctors being absolute world-class experts and practitioners in their lane, which is crisis and emergency medicine. It's going to take world-class practitioners with a big heart and a brain that understands how to actually get the job done to step into the drug-free, natural neurological space and say, hey, we're going to do our job over here to restore health, to repair and regulate the nervous system, and get healing happening in that way. And if we all could work in partnership together, then the outcome that this podcast and this platform, and me personally especially, can say, this is what we get up every day to do, then millions of kids get healthier, stay healthy, and we can shift future generations from being riddled with chronic illness in the perfect storm to living this healthy, thriving, almost indescribably awesome life that I know God designed us to do. So that's my opening statement to this episode. Let me get into some of my direct talking points and responses to what's going on there with these MDs getting on Instagram, getting on TikTok, and just bashing anybody and everybody that doesn't think like them, practice like them, and do that. So the real problem that is really sparking this on those social platforms, again, it's not chiropractic versus medicine. It's not natural health versus better health through chemistry and pharmacology. It's honestly, we're just in this crazy polarized world. They're really doing it not because they care so much that the care or the treatment or whatever they provide is effective and helpful for your family. When you watch every single one of these, you can watch that their primary goal is two things. They want to be right, and they want to protect their turf. You could also say market share, which they've had their hooks and their clamps in for a long time. And now that's changing massively. Millions of parents are shifting their principles, their actions, and their trust away from the conventional medical system because they've been in charge for generations. And now we have the sickest generation of kids, the sickest, most medicated generation of parents, the sickest, most unbelievably heavily medicated grandparents. So as a parent today, you can do the same thing three ways. You can look up at your grandparents who are your parents and grandparents who are really the generations who got completely steamrolled by conventional medicine and better health through chemistry, and there's a pill for every ill. And they're the sickest, most struggling generation ever. Most parents can look around at the soccer pickup, at the schools, functions. They can look around and they can say, are we healthy? We see parents who are really, really overweight and out of shape and exhausted and anxious and depressed and medicated and dealing with diabetes and heart disease and cancer everywhere. And so we can look in our own generation and say, how did we get here? Well, we trusted the medical approach, our parents did, for us as kids. We then learned those philosophies, those principles. Those philosophies and principles dictate our actions and behaviors, and the actions and behaviors have left people chronically sick, obese, depressed, anxious, and taking more medications, especially here in the United States, than the rest of the flipping world almost combined, and we're not getting healthier for it. And then parents today can look down at their kids and say, the more I go into that conventional medical system, the more we go in there for those quote unquote wellness visits, and we get the interventions that happen there, we get the medications every time there's anything and everything, the sicker we get. So at the heart of this issue is, what do the doctors you trust for your family care the most about? Do they care about being right and protecting their turf? Or do they care about being effective at serving your family? I had an incredible mentor during my career. He's a fellow incredible chiropractor, and I got to be mentored by him and work with him for a long time. Dr. David Jackson taught me this lesson when we were really working on a big project one day that we were super, super passionate about getting this message out to the world. And he said, the most important thing you can always remember is the goal of whatever you're saying and doing needs to be being effective, meaning being in service and benefiting others, more so than is about being right. When someone only wants to be right, They love reaction reels. They love poking the bear. They love clickbait. And that's where most of the world is right now. It hooks us into this algorithm because it's everybody just arguing for their ability to be right, while we're over here on the Experience Miracles podcast and the PX Docs platform and in our practices, just doing everything we possibly can to be effective and helpful and in service to your family. And when you don't operate with that as your principle, you actually end up really not liking people that do, because you'll never say it out loud, but those are the ones you really want to tear down. Those are the ones you really want to, kind of cancel and shut down if you can, because those are the ones who are really doing good in the world. And if you're not waking up each day with the primary and solo goal of doing more good, then you're not a big fan of those who do. So what's the real issue? We're in this healthcare political system that is so, and again, those two systems are linked at the hip. Did you know there's more lobbyists for the hospital and pharmaceutical industry than there is even ones like oil and gas and other big industry? Like, it is a very tethered at the hip sort of world there. And it's why everybody is so defensive, territorial, and intolerant of anything outside of pharmaceuticals and surgery. It's wild. We're talking about getting kids healthy. Why does it matter whether that happens naturally, neurologically, or pharmacologically? And why can't we go in that order with our interventions? Because that's how God designed it. And the first two are not only very, very, very effective, and there's more neuroscience research than ever before to back that up, but they have the least amount of side effects. So why would we not build a health care system that works with the body naturally, neurologically first, and saves emergency, crisis, pharmaceutical, surgical interventions last? There is actually a huge movement even within the medical profession for medical doctors to move into this functional, integrative way as well. And I champion those doctors. We need millions more of those doctors. And if you really want to talk about who's courageous, it's those who have the same initials as the ones who want to stay stuck in the system of 1980 and never see it change, but are actually out there alongside of us, practitioners like myself and parents like you, fighting from the inside out to make real change in the healthcare, medical, conventional system. But why are we talking about this? Why is this such a passionate, very important topic for me to bring to you? Because you're caught in the middle. Your kids are caught in the middle. And I know if I'm tired of fighting, you got to be 10 times more tired of fighting as well, because all you're looking for is one thing: results, to get your kids healthy again and keep them that way. So this conversation is important when we get into the absolute kind of soul foundation of it, but it's distracting on the surface. And that's why I think they're making all these reels and all this content as well. Because if they can continue to keep everybody distracted and irritated and angry and cautious, then they'll just keep everybody doing what's been happening. And if we allow that to happen, we're going to stay where millions of kids are going down the perfect storm path to chronic illness when they could be walking the path like us or with us through natural neurological health and get real healing happening from the inside out. The next point I want to bring up that would be my reaction to all this happening is, can we just look at outcomes, not opinions? See, this is where everything changes. Instead of looking at it for TikTok or Instagram drama, let's just get into these offices and let's just start doing studies that say, okay, we take 1,000 kids who are raised in families who go to the PX doctor and chiropractor first, who do not turn to antibiotics, corticosteroids, nebulizers, or over-the-counter medications for every sniffle, sneeze, fever. They don't bring Tylenol or medications to bring every fever down. They don't vaccinate at all or significantly delay it and limit it and make sure that the child is actually healthy and the nervous system can handle these things and they can detox from all the adjuvants that come with with it. Let's just look at all the behaviors, the healthy lifestyle choices, and the interventions that families over here would go all in for. And then also that usually comes with which ones would they avoid. And then let's go into the conventional, traditional, many generations, still looks the same. Conventional pediatrician office, grab 1,000 kids from there and just ask the question, who's healthier? Did you know these studies are being done and have been done? And I want to actually talk about this. I'm going to come back to research in a couple more points. But how much research do we really care about as parents? Or do we just want to use common sense and real life observation? What I have seen and what drives my passion so much is not how much I love neuroscience and research. I do. I read it all day, every day. But I can just look at my practice and I can see how ridiculously healthy, vibrant, resilient, and adaptable those families that get adjusted and live this way are. And guess what? My kids go to school, they play sports. So I'm also out in the rest of the community and I can see families who don't live that way. So they default back to the conventional pediatrician medical approach. They're riddled with asthma, allergies, chronic illness, ADHD, anxiety, depression, and their kids are on multiple medications. And they don't know that there's a different path because they're just so stuck in default mode. And the kids in the former group are significantly, by every metric and every way you could look at it, healthier than the kids in the latter group. And again, I want to paint this picture not as that means the former group is right and the latter group is wrong. No, one is more effective than the other, and every kid and family deserves to know that truth. So when we look at why chiropractic, natural health, and these things are exploding in the marketplace, can I, with this part of this episode, just state the truth? It's because it works. It's because it's working, and you can't deny the truth from a mom and dad. When they see, hey, I took the conventional medical path, I did everything they told me to do, and I ended up with a sick kid. And then we went completely in the other direction. I took my child to a PX doctor, to a chiropractor, and it's transformed our lives. My kid healed from all these chronic illnesses, not because they were cured or because chiropractic is a treatment or anything else, but because they worked with getting the brain, the nervous system, and the body working better again, naturally, neurologically, on its own. So these families, millions of them, have seen their children heal, and then millions more do that proactively, preventatively, and they see their children thrive without ever going in and getting sick in the first place. And guess what? It works. It's worked for them. It's worked for millions of others. And they tell everybody they can about it because that story of transformation is powerful and it's neurological and it's truthful. And so if there's one thing I know about parents is that they will wade right through all the polarization and the politicalization of all of this, whether content or conventional medicine, and they will find the practitioners and the solutions and the answers for their child no matter what, no matter how long it takes them, no matter how far they need to drive or get on a plane and fly to another state or another country, and no matter how much it costs. Parents will find what works. And because they are today, and these things like neurologically focused chiropractic are exploding, that's why so many people who are not big fans of that are exploding with angry, hateful, dismissive, outdated, unscientific reactionary reels. That's just the truth. And then there's perspective of lived experience. Now, I have the most amount of, and if you listen to this on the surface, nobody's going to maybe hear it. I maybe could do an even better job of stating it more clearly, so I'll try here. I actually have the most amount of respect, reverence, and gratitude probably of any chiropractor on earth. And I know I'm tied actually with a ton of others, because I've seen medicine in its emergency crisis intervention save my child's life. And I've seen it do so many other things for my other kiddos too. But surgeries, medications, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, nicknamed ECMO, that machine saved my son Oliver's life. I would have paid any price and done anything for that to happen. And guess what it did? right in the thick of our perfect storm, after my son's traumatic birth and everything he went through. We'll put in the show notes, we'll put the link to his whole story. I'm not going to tell it on this one. But Oliver is a medical miracle. See, if you are an ER physician, and that's where Oliver ended up after his traumatic birth, or if you're a surgical, neurological, physician, you're going to see the world primarily through your lived experiences. If you wake up every single day and you serve in a hospital, medical, crisis intervention, first stop, first call, ambulance, dropping people and kids off there all the time, you're going to see the world through that perspective. And what I want to say to all of those physicians and all of those doctors, thank you a million times over. If there was ever words, and there isn't enough adjectives to describe our gratitude and our thankfulness to the medical world for saving lives like they do in the emergency and crisis intervention world. If I could see Oliver's surgeon, she was somebody who wanted to stay very private. We got to meet her literally only before his surgery with ECMO and for a hot minute afterwards, and never got any information about that. We stopped in for years on end into the NICU. And I wish that right now I could give those doctors, give those nurses, and even give those machines, and yes, those medications that he needed while he needed to go through those surgeries. I wish I could give them all the biggest chiro bro dad hug if you've ever been hugged by me, those of you listening that have, you know I'm a legitimate hugger. Very raging bull, decently strong. My children, they're like age 44. How strong are you anymore, bro? Oliver would argue with this. Just kidding. I still got him on this front, okay? He's a lot faster and all those things. But if we're just on the squat rack, little potato chip, I got you still, Oliver, miracle man. Medical miracle man, chiro miracle man. I'll move on. But I want you to know lived experiences form how you see the world. Inside our practice all day, every day, we see kids and families who got stuck fully in the drugs first conventional medical system, get sicker than ever before. They come into our practice and the way we do things, and they transform. That's our lived experiences. So that's our understanding, and that's our recommendations are formed by that. So it's not that families are leaving traditional medicine and conventional medicine because they hate it and we know we're never going to use it and we're just anti every antibiotic or anti every medication or anti every surgery. No, it's just sequencing. What if we could save that truly for emergency and crisis interventions only? Because a mom watching her child have 30 seizures a day, a dad watching his child stuck with level 3 autism, never making eye contact, never saying, I love you, Dad, never playing and interacting with other kids and going to school, doesn't really care about these medical doctors' Instagram posts. They don't even care about mine. They care about what works. That's where we put all of our focus with this platform, with this podcast, and with the work we do inside every PX Docs office in the world. You won't find us get too caught up in the drama, get caught up at all in the politics, because our purpose and our principles are simply about one thing. All day, every kid counts. We show up to serve and get results. We care about that and only that, and nothing else. Okay. Next talking point is we kind of round second and third base with this one. Science has evolved, especially neuroscience. It now confirms that neuroplasticity, neurodevelopment, vagus nerve modulation, stimulation, dysautonomia, dysregulation, and everything that chiropractic, because it's never been about the spine, it's always been about the nervous system. Chiropractic has been at the leading edge of natural, neurologically focused, drug-free healthcare for 125 plus years. If you were to go back, I've actually seen a bunch of medical doctors getting on here. Actually, even, I love you, Joe Rogan, but man, unfortunately, he must have gone to a really turd of a chiropractor. And so, same with empathy with the medical doctors and why they're making this content. Totally understand why Mr. Rogan has such a negative opinion of chiropractic, because our profession is certainly not a single one anywhere, from podcasters to pediatric chiropractors to medical doctors, have 100% of them who are doing the job well. So if you get exposed to one who isn't, well, back to lived experiences, that's going to be there. But I've actually seen people like, did you know that the guy that started chiropractic was like a magnetic healer who saw ghosts? Did you know that his son, Dr. BJ Palmer, was this crazy guy who did all this and did all that? It's true. There's some crazy stories in chiropractic, but call the kettle black much? Did you know that at the same time chiropractic was forming and exacting and figuring out our neuroscience, subluxation, how the brain and the body are connected, and how the neurospinal system is the conduit? So if subluxation sets up shop there, it leads to disafferentation, dysautonomia, dysregulation, sensory motor dysfunction to the cerebellum, to the amygdala, to the hippocampus, alters the prefrontal cortex, and the prefrontal cortex and the brain controls everything. So if you get adjusted, it helps with everything. That was just a quick little scientific rant. So as we were figuring all this neuroscience out about subluxation, looking at it through the spine, through x-rays, through biomechanical, and bringing it to the nervous system, did you know that medical doctors were doing bloodletting with using leeches and taking and doing lobotomies for brain-based challenges? They're like, that's a brain problem. Take it out. So I don't know that the foundational formative years, again, did we have MRIs? No. Did we have insight scans? No. Do we have the science we knew? So what's crazy is if you were to read the literal scientific, philosophic, I'll kind of put those two together, explanations of how the science of chiropractic worked. If you were to read these, what are called green books in our profession from 100 years ago, you would feel like you're reading the most modernized approach to neurologically focused, drug-free natural health care ever. When you get on Instagram, let's stay on that frame. When you go on Instagram and you see all these amazing moms and health coaches and psychiatrists and psychologists and all sorts of different practitioners and people talking about, man, I tried everything to heal myself. I tried all the medications, didn't get there. I tried all the diet changes and the workout plans and the detoxifications and the infrared sauna and the red light and every other sort of, kind of functional integrative approach and didn't get there. And you see all over Instagram, and then I worked on my nervous system. And then I made sure I could get myself out of this constant sympathetic fight or flight overdrive, and I could stimulate and activate my vagus nerve and my parasympathetic system. When you see people of any initials or not, any background or not, and however they talked about intervening and repairing, which we have to do before we regulate our nervous system. I have a whole episode about that. And they experienced miracles for themselves or their kids by doing this. Everything they're talking about with how the nervous system works and how they tapped into it, that's chiropractic. That's the principles and the neuroscience that has been behind chiropractic for over a century. And now every day, every week, every month, and every year, more research and more neurophysiological neuroplasticity studies come out and say that's where health really is. You can read it in the Bible, because that's how God designed it. The nervous system and the body is the boss. And you can read it in biology and neurology texts and say, when you focus on autonomic function and the nervous system, you're tapping into digestion, immune function, inflammation, endocrine control, mitochondria, detoxification. And so looking at research that is exploding around things like dysautonomia, HRV, sensory motor development in kids, those are all chiropractic stories. So yes, critics will use an outdated argument to say, chiropractic looks at it this way. But if you take the principles of chiropractic neuroscience that have been around forever and update them through the lens of research and understanding we have now today, it really puts the picture together. One of my final talking points here on this one, I just need to, for my own parent experience and for yours too, maybe what's in your past, or unfortunately, we all know that many of us are going to face more injuries, more accidents, and more things going forward. It just is worth saying again, conventional medicine saves lives. Emergency crisis intervention, there's nothing like it. We are so blessed. We are so spoiled in today's world with how much they can handle those things. It's hard to describe how good they are at that. And then neurologically focused natural healthcare practitioners restore lives. So where medicine shines, emergencies, infections, trauma, that level of intervention, medication, technology, devices, no wonder it costs cajillions, because it's really quite impressive on a crisis and emergency intervention standpoint. I remember Oliver's bill, how do we had to pay cash? It would have been well north. I think it was like $1.2 or $1.4 million. I'd have paid $100 million somehow, some way for the fact that they saved his life the way they did. In today's dollars, with inflation and all the craziness, I'm sure it's way more beyond that. Now don't hear what I'm not saying, everybody listening in. Should healthcare cost that much? No, but most of it isn't healthcare. Most of it doesn't work, which is why net in aggregate, it does cost so much. So chronic illness, developmental delays, autism, anxiety, sensory processing disorder, ADHD. Do we really just want to go to medications only and stuff it down and chase symptoms? Do we really just want to say, oh, this isn't a condition at all? We're just going to accept it and say that's the way you are? Well, what if that way leads to struggles for that child or that person every single day? Are we just going to really accept it and say you're destined to struggle? There's nothing you can do about it? No, we're going to continue to look at how we can restore optimal neurological function naturally without drugs, and we shine in that space. One more that I think is super, super important is this. If you're going to criticize neurologically focused chiropractic, subluxation, and natural health, you should probably try and understand it first. Not a single one of these people that I've seen so far, and all these reels and all these videos and all these posts I've been tagged in, the first thing I can tell is that the person, the doctor talking about and bashing, whatever they're bashing, doesn't have the first clue about how any of this works. Let me just state the obvious that everybody forgets when it comes to this stuff. If you didn't go to chiropractic school, you don't know anything about it. So this is massive. When I'm talking about medical care, and I'm contrasting, I'm talking about through lived experiences as a parent. I'm talking about research as we understand it. I'm never going to sit there and say, oh, this is how surgery works. This is how this medication actually works. That's not something I know about because I'm not educated in that. I find it, here's why I told you in the beginning, I wouldn't go on a rant. I wouldn't lose it. But most of these reels that I'm being tagged in, the only thing the medical doctors or the bashers talk about is how often they went to school and how much education they have. It took 12 years for this, 14 years for this. I took all these classes. Huh? Okay. How's it working? What are the results you get with patients? Back to our foundational principle point here today. The results speak louder than words. Results matter more than your initials or your education or your residency or whatever you have. Those things, love that you went through them, but that was quite a lot of work and a lot of cost. But what results is it generating for our patients and this world? Better results are not coming through more medications and surgeries and medical interventions. The data is clear. Lived experiences, common sense is clear. Better results don't really have to do with someone's education. I know that a lot of moms and a lot of dads that I get to work with now today, shout out to our podcast homies, you know this stuff almost better than I do. And you definitely understand neurophysiology and root cause better than a lot of conventional medical doctors not because you needed to go to school and accrue a ton of time and a ton of debt to get a couple of initials, but because you took the time, because you care that much about getting your kids healthy again, naturally, neurologically, drug-free, that you've done the research. So as we always have on this podcast, we honor you and your use of Google, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. The reason you tagged us, sent us a bunch of DMs, and asked us for this episode, hey, what do you think about all this? Is because I know why you're on there. You're not there looking to bash others. You're not there looking to poke the bear like all these people that caused, if you will, we're talking about root cause, this episode to come to light. You're there for one reason and one reason only. You're looking for, scrolling for, searching for answers and doctors and practitioners and products and interventions that will get your kids and family healthy again. So what I love about this is you understand it at a deeper level than the people who are bashing and trying to stand against it. And I think that right there says quite a bit along with all of the rest of our bullet points. So parents, I want you to know you are certainly not delusional. just do the same thing I'm doing with all these doctors who are just so angry, so reactionary, so off using straw man and gaslighting at all times. I forgot to bring gaslighting earlier on. Remember, if you've been listening to podcasts, you know that I now know what that is. And for being a 40-year-old, there's a lot of things that I talk about all the time and I hear all the time and I'm like, 6, 7, and I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I kind of actually do know what that one is. It's nothing, all right? So the truth is, if you're irritated, if you're inflamed, ticked off, and upset by all these medical doctors and medical people getting on Instagram, getting on TikTok, and trying to bash chiropractic and natural health and bash your choices you make for your family, my recommendation is to do what I do. Don't comment, don't reply. Delete, block, ban, bye-bye, Mr. Basher. Have a nice life where you love medications, you love talking down to others, you love putting yourself on a pedestal and acting like you know everything, and other doctors of other initials and other professions, and most importantly, parents who have these literal, daily lived experiences don't know as much as you. Those are the people for which God gave us the delete, block, ban, bye-bye button for. I strongly suggest you use that button and that tab to its fullest experience, and you will have a much better experience as you continue to be on Instagram and Facebook and Google and TikTok and YouTube looking for what led you to this podcast. Your search for more hope, more answers, and more drug-free help for your children. This podcast, myself, our docs, our network are not here to fight against medicine. In fact, we will cheer on crisis emergency medicine for the rest of our days and have the most respect and reverence for when they're in their lane doing what only they can do. It is miraculous. We're here to fight for your kids naturally, neurologically, healing from the inside out and saving medications and surgery and interventions as the last resort, not the first and only resort. So if others want to inflame the conversation, argue, debate, and distract people from what's really happening because they see it, millions of moms are shifting towards natural health, neurologically focused chiropractic, and the truth. Well, if we're going to get in that conversation, let's use updated neuroscience. Let's use updated technology. Let's use lived experiences, and let's work with and for parents, not against each other. God bless. Be well. I hope this one served you very well. Please share it. If you have not left a review on Apple or Spotify for the Experience Miracles podcast yet, please do that. And remember always, here's what we'll talk about. Because at the end of the day, there's only one thing that matters, and that's results. And that's working with you in the direction and with the interventions that you choose are right for your family. We work for you forever. Every kid counts. God bless. Be well. See you on the next one. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Do you have a question that you would like to submit? Either send it to support@pxdocs.com with the subject Ask Dr. Tony, or head on over to our socials @pxdocs, where you can submit your question in our stories every single week. Every kid counts and every family counts, so let's leave no questions left unanswered. If you loved this episode and you want to help us reach more kids, we would so appreciate if you left a review and a rating on your favorite platform. God bless. Be well. We'll see you on the next one.